We sit in a comfortable meditation posture and close the eyes. Put your attention on the silence that is always there deep in the mind. Connect with that silence. Become the silence. You are the silent witness. Now using the senses of the silent witness, listen to the words of the Yoga Vasishta. Continuing with verse 18. There resides also the impure mind, which is by nature beyond all physical objects and runs after its own desire. It is conceivable by consciousness as sullied by its own activity. This ubiquitous, all-potent, great, godlike mind in its imagination separates itself from the Supreme Spirit and rises from it like a wave on the surface of the sea. There is no fluctuation or projection in the all-extending, tranquil soul of God. But these take place in the mind, owing to its desires, which cause the production of all things in the world. Therefore, the world, being the production of desire or will, has its extinction with the privation of desires. For that which is the growth of a thing causes its extinction also. Like the wind that kindles the fire also extinguishes it. The exertion of human effort gives rise to the expectation of results. But lack of desire causes the cessation of exertions and consequently puts a stop to the desire of activity and our ignorance that causes desire. The thought that I am distinct from Brahman binds the mind to the world, but the belief that Brahman is all releases the mind from its bondage. Every thought about one's self fastens his bondage in the world. But release from selfish thoughts leads him to liberation. Cease from your selfish cares, and you shall cease to work with persistence for nothing. Now, what Vasishtha is saying here is not a practical technique that one can do. It is impossible to stop thinking, to cease from selfish cares. This is the nature of the mind. And these ideas, these thoughts that come up in the mind are always arising from individual karmic traces. So what is being said here is this is what must be done. Thoughts must cease. The mind must disappear. The mind binds the individual to the world. The mind creates the individual. In order to extinguish the mind, we must balance the causal karmic traces. And that's what we accomplish in our meditation. So this will happen spontaneously. The mind will simply disappear. Thoughts will simply stop. That may come suddenly and remain permanently, or we may have a few minutes, a few days, a few hours of pure mindlessness. And then it comes back. That's normal. As we work through the karmic traces, there will be times when we can feel the release of this bondage. But at some point, the mind simply stops. And how will we know this? We will know it by its absence. It's a little bit like the electricity suddenly turning off in the house. It becomes so quiet. You have forgotten and stopped paying attention to the noises of the various machines going on in the house, the refrigerator, the air conditioner. And when the electricity goes off, it becomes totally silent. It's like that. When the mind shuts off, everything becomes completely silent. Verse 25. There is no lake of lotuses in the sky, nor is there a lotus growing in the gold mine, whose fragrance fills the air and attracts the blue bees to suck its honey. The goddess of ignorance, with her uplifted arms, resembling the long stalks of lotus plants, laughs over her conquest in exultation with the glaring light of shining moonbeams. Such is the net of our wishes that our mind spreads before us, which represents unrealities as real and take a delight to dwell upon them like children in their toys. So also is the trap spread out by our own ignorance all over this world. It ensnares busy people to their misery in all places, just as it tightly binds ignorant men and children in its chains. Men are busy with worldly affairs, with such thoughts as, I am poor and bound to this earth for my life, but I have my hands and feet with which I must work for myself. But they are freed from all affairs of this life, who know themselves as spiritual beings, and that their spiritual part is neither subject to bondage nor labor. The thought that I am neither flesh or bones, but some other thing other than my body, releases one from this bondage. One having assurance within is said to have weakened his avidya, or ignorance. The imagination of earthly men paint ignorance as dark as the darkness that surrounds the highest pinnacle of Mount Meru, blazing with the blue light of sapphire, or at the primeval darkness, impenetrable by sunlight. Earth born mortals also represent ignorance as the blackness which naturally covers the face of heaven by its own nature, like the blue vault of the sky. Thus, in the imagination of the unenlightened, ignorance is pictured with a visible form. But the enlightened never attribute qualities of physical sensation to inanimate and imaginary objects. From Set, tell me, sage, what is the cause of the blueness of the sky, if it is not the reflection of the blue gems on the Meru's peak? Is it a collection of darkness at night by itself? Vasishta replied, from the sky being only an empty vacuum cannot have the quality of blueness, which is commonly attributed to it. Nor is it the bluish luster of the blue gems that are supposed to abound on the top of Meru. Nor is there any possibility of a body of darkness abiding in the sky when the cosmic egg is full of light, which has displaced the primeval darkness, and when the nature of light is the brightness that stretches over the extraterrestrial regions. O fortunate Ram, the sky, which is a vast vacuum, is open to a sister of ignorance with regard to its inner hollowness. As one, after losing his eyesight, sees only darkness all about him, so the lack of the objects of sight in the womb of emptiness gives the sky the appearance of a dark scene. By understanding this, as you come to the knowledge that the apparent blackness of the sky is no black color of its own, so you come to learn the seeming darkness of ignorance to be no darkness in reality. Want of desire or its detachment is the destroyer of ignorance. It is as easy to effect it as to annihilate a lake of lotuses growing in the sky. It is better, O good Ram, to distrust the delusions of this world and disbelieve the blueness of the sky than to labor under the error of their reality. The thought that I am dead makes one as sad as when he dreams of his death in sleep. Similarly, the thought that I am living makes one as cheerful as when he wakes from the deadly dream of his death-like sleep. Foolish imaginations make the mind as dull as that of a fool, but reasonable reflections lead it to the wisdom and clear-sightedness. A moment's reflection of the reality of the world and of its own essence casts the man into the gloom of everlasting ignorance, while his forgetfulness of these removes all mortal thoughts from his mind. Ignorance produces passions and temptations for all transient objects. Ignorance is busy, destroying the knowledge of the soul. It is destroyed only by knowledge of the soul. Whatever the mind seeks is instantly supplied by the organs of action, which serve as ministers subservient to the orders of their king. Therefore, he who by his diligent application to spirituality does not attend to the dictates of his mind in the pursuit of phenomena entertains the tranquility of his inmost soul. What did not exist at first has no existence even now. That which appears as existent is nothing other than the quiescent and immaculate essence, Brahma himself. Let no other thought of any person, thing, place, or object employ your mind at any time, except that of the immutable, everlasting, and unlimited Spirit of Brahma. Rely upon the superior powers of your understanding. Exert your sovereign intellect and root out worldly desires by enjoyment of the pleasures of your mind. The great ignorance that rises in the mind and raises the desires of your heart has spread the net of your false hopes for ruin, causing your death and discrepitude under them. Now we will continue in silence, established in the silent witness. Watching the conscious thinking mind. We start the mantra and let it go. Follow the mantra to the deepest level of consciousness. Where knowledge constructs are being balanced, other words of the Yoga Vasishtha. Jai Gurudev. Thank you for joining.